I'm telling you, Christina, my best friend Megan said, Daniel's a typical man. He'll hear your proposal and just think about how it benefits him. I really don't like the idea of him being with other women, I replied. Christina, I never said he'd actually date anybody, Megan insisted. He's 39 and supposedly past his prime. Do you really think he'll be entertaining 20-somethings every weekend? He'll stay home with the kids, and you can finally live your best life. Are you sure that won't backfire? I asked, glancing at my friends and coworkers. Christina, Adam from our office is desperate to get you into bed, Katie chimed in. By asking for this, you can have your fun with him without guilt. Linda added, your husband will be too busy working and dealing with the kids. Just keep Daniel entertained a little, and he'll never suspect a thing. The more we talked, the more appealing the idea sounded. I'd been married to Daniel for 15 years, with 2 children, a house, and annual family trips. We both worked, and overall, we were pretty happy. But as I approached 38, I felt something missing, excitement. My husband still adored me and remained thoughtful, but I felt bored. That's when Megan proposed a modern solution, and my other friends chimed in about evolving relationships. I wasn't certain Daniel would agree, but my friends were persuasive. That night, I made up my mind to talk to him. I'll bring it up tomorrow night after dinner, I told them. It'll be fine, Megan assured me. He'll be grateful. And if you need help, one of us can distract him. I disliked the idea of my friends getting cozy with my husband, but if it allowed me to explore my own desires, I'd accept it. After all, a few younger colleagues at the office reminded me I was still attractive, which boosted my confidence. When I got home, Daniel greeted me with a warm hug, completely unaware of my plans. I shed a few anxious tears that night, worrying about how things might turn out. The next day was Saturday, usually a time for family fun. Our teenagers, Jade, 16, and Noah, 14, were more interested in hanging out with friends. Dinner ended up awkward because the kids were glued to their phones. Daniel, as usual, enforced our no phones rule, which the kids eventually respected. Afterward, I told them, I need to talk to your dad. This isn't for little ears. Are you having another baby? Jade asked excitedly. No, I said, spotting Daniel's curious expression. It's something important. He poured us both a glass of wine and sat across the table, giving me his full attention. Though normally talkative, my husband could become silent and serious at crucial moments, preferring to listen first. Are you happy? I asked. With what? He responded. With everything. Our life. I have a loving wife, 2 fantastic kids, a nice house. We're comfortable, we have good jobs. It's all good. I'm glad you feel that way, I said softly, but I'm bored, Daniel. He grew quiet, brow furrowed. Bored? With me? It's not you, it's just. I need more excitement. Am I not enough? It's not about you, I said, tensing up. I've been talking to my friends, doing some reading. Traditional relationships are changing. He raised an eyebrow. Don't give me that modern nonsense talk. What do you actually want? I want an open marriage. So we can both see other people. His expression shifted drastically, confusion, then hurt, then anger. He clenched his wine glass as if deciding whether to smash it. Repeat that, Christina. I want an open marriage so we can date other people. Just think about it. You could be with younger women if you wanted. He said nothing, just glared at me. Finally, his voice rasped, no. We made vows. I take that seriously. Have you, Christina? I do take them seriously. But people change, and we can still love each other. I just need this thrill. His jaw tightened, fury burned in his gaze, but he swallowed any immediate outburst. Abruptly, he stood and walked toward the back door. "Where are you going?" "To think," he replied. "My wife just told me she wants to sleep around. I need fresh air." He left, muttering insults I won't repeat. I heard him call me a floozy under his breath. He didn't come back inside that night. The next morning, his side of the bed remained untouched. I showered and headed to work, finding Noah in the kitchen, Jade still getting ready. Daniel had already left. "He left early," Noah said. "Said he might be back late." Daniel had never left the house without kissing me goodbye before. It stung. I tried texting him throughout the day, little notes about how much I loved him, but got no response. By evening, his car wasn't there. When he finally returned, he just greeted our kids and offered me a cold hello before stepping back outside. At dinner, Daniel chatted with Noah and Jade but barely spoke a word to me. Afterward, he dismissed the kids and confronted me. "I researched these open relationships you're into," he said, arms folded. "If I say no, you'll cheat anyway. And if I give in, I lose you in a different way. Daniel, let's set rules," he snapped. "No men in our house. Our bed stays ours, sacred. Always use protection until you're tested. I don't want to meet or hear about your lovers. And if you sleep with someone, you can't expect me to fulfill your emotional or physical needs after." I was so caught up in the idea of potential flings that I barely registered what he was really saying. I believed I'd date for a year or two, get it out of my system, and return to normal. He stood up, anger replaced by cold acceptance. I saw the hurt in his eyes, knowing I was the cause. But I also remembered my friend's advice: be selfish for once. He'd get over it, right? That night, he slept in the study. I downloaded some dating apps, made a profile, and texted Megan about how it went. "His ego's wounded, but he'll deal," she said. "He's lucky you even offered this instead of just cheating." For the rest of the week, the atmosphere at home was ice cold. The kids noticed but said nothing. Daniel returned to our bed briefly, yet refused any affection. By Friday, I'd arranged a girls' night out, told him so, and left without waiting for his response. I packed a small overnight bag in case of a blow-up, kissed the kids goodbye, and headed to the office. My co-workers cheered me on when I showed them my outfit for the night. One was Adam, the man who had flirted with me for months. He practically buzzed with excitement when I suggested meeting for drinks. "Seriously? Your husband agreed?" Adam asked. "Don't mention him," I said with a coy smile. "Just meet me at the sand bar later, if you want." At 5, I changed clothes, put on more makeup, and met my friends for a drink. Adam arrived soon after, eyes full of anticipation. We found a booth, made small talk, and soon ended up at a hotel I'd booked. He practically dragged me there. Later, I showered, dressed, and checked out. Heading home well after midnight, I found Daniel asleep in the study, a blanket tossed over him. I tried nudging him awake, but he just opened his eyes, stared at me with cold detachment, and said, "Go to bed, Christina." "Alone? Are you coming with me?" I whispered. He shook his head. "No. Remember the rules." With a huff, I went to our bedroom. If he wanted to sulk, that was on him. If it kept up, I just wouldn't come home at all. For the next couple of months, I limited my date nights to weekends, sometimes Fridays too. But Daniel rarely came to bed. The kids started asking questions. When I confronted Daniel about ignoring me, he retorted that he was only following the arrangement. "You got what you wanted," he said bluntly. "But don't expect me to be your emotional support." We never made love anymore. And yes, I missed him, his touch, the comfort. But I wasn't ready to give up my new lifestyle. Most weekends, I was with someone new, though some dates were awkward. My friend Megan was proud of me for living it up. I began storing clothes at work and at Adam's. In 6 months, I barely spent time at home. I was too busy enjoying what I thought was my best life, oblivious to how much damage I was causing. From the moment Christina asked for an open marriage, my love for her vanished. Some people wonder how I could stop loving someone after 15 years together, but betrayal and disrespect can do that to a person. I needed advice and turned to my closest friend, Jennifer. "Daniel, you can't handle this like I did with Peter," she said firmly. "You have the kids to think about." We'd known each other for 30 years, and she saw right through me. I told her everything, raw and ugly. Part of me wanted to leave, but I didn't want to lose the kids. "I won't be a part-time dad," I muttered. She advised me to go Grey Rock, to give Christina as little emotion as possible, keep it cool, protect myself and the kids. I tried. It wasn't easy, and I lashed out a few times. The first night she slept with someone else, I almost exploded. She waltzed in and had the audacity to want me in bed as if nothing had happened. I slept in the study, holding on to my anger instead of falling apart. From then on, I focused on Noah and Jade. I worked out, hired a personal trainer, and found new hobbies. Meanwhile, Christina partied. When she eventually started staying out more, I spent time with Jennifer. The kids saw me as their reliable parent, ironically making them closer to Jennifer, too. "Dad, why do you put up with this?" Jade asked one night. She was only 16 but saw more than I realized. "Are you and Mom even in love anymore?" "No," I answered truthfully, "I'm only here for you and Noah." They had learned about their mom's escapades from the internet and from teasing at school. They appreciated me, and Jennifer, who was like an aunt to them. Christina's absence tore them up, though they wouldn't openly admit it to her. Over time, Jennifer and I grew even closer, but we never crossed certain lines. We loved each other as best friends, yet we didn't take the final step. Not then. Eventually, Jade confronted her mom, who brushed it off. Noah tried to stay neutral, but he was hurt, too. Christina seemed oblivious, she only popped in to shower, gather clothes, or promise to attend their events, and rarely did. In truth, after Christina opened our marriage, I started looking for companionship. At first, it felt wrong, but soon I realized, if she had free rein, so did I. Enter Nicole, a 25-year-old I met through a mutual friend. Then Haley, 21, the daughter of a coworker. Yes, it was surreal. But I needed to feel wanted, and they made me feel alive for a while. All the while, Jennifer quietly supported me. We'd watch movies together or go out for dinner, always mindful that we were flirting with a line. But she respected that I was still technically married, even if the marriage was a shell. I confess, once the floodgates opened, I indulged in multiple Tinder dates. Adam from work, other matches, sometimes random flings. But something felt hollow. After a while, I realized I craved a steadier bond, so I gravitated to Brandon, a man in his early 40s who traveled extensively for business. We met at a bar when I was upset about Daniel, and Brandon offered a kind ear. Soon, I was spending several nights a week with him. He was in an open marriage himself, living separately from his wife. He wasn't discreet about it, but he was open about boundaries. He listened to my complaints about Daniel, shaking his head. "You blindsided him," he said gently. "At least my wife and I had an understanding from the start." Despite his own arrangement, Brandon was kind. He took me on trips across states and overseas. Over months, I found myself in a quasi-relationship with him. I rarely went home. Jade was resentful, Noah still texted me but kept his distance. When I saw social media posts of Daniel taking our kids on a trip to Hawaii with Jennifer, jealousy flared. Brandon found me crying and suggested I take a break from traveling, try mending fences with my children. I tried. Sometimes I'd go home for a weekend. But Jade would barely speak to me. Daniel was polite but distant, still refusing any emotional closeness. Noah was sweet and hugged me, but the pain in his eyes was evident. I started to grasp what I'd lost. I wanted my husband to hold me again, to say he loved me. But I had forced him into an arrangement that destroyed his love for me. A year later, on a random evening, Daniel quietly told me, "Jade turned 18 last month. Noah is 16. We should talk about a divorce." My heart sank. We'd been married 15 years, built a life, a home, had children, faced ups and downs, and I'd thrown it away. We sat at the table one night, Jade and Noah were out. Daniel placed papers in front of me. I started crying before even reading them. "I don't apologize for doing this," he said gently. "I stayed to be near the kids until Jade was an adult. You and I aren't the same people anymore." He held my hand. I wept at the realization that the final blow was coming. "I never wanted it to end like this," I whispered. "I just wanted something new for a little while." He sighed. "I know. But there's no going back. My love for you, it died the night you asked me for an open marriage. You forced it. I accepted out of desperation, but I could never look at you the same again." He explained that he planned to move in with Jennifer. He wanted the house sold or for me to buy him out if I could. We'd sort finances and do a joint filing so it wouldn't be a legal fight. He kissed the top of my head, wiped my tears, then left me alone. On the day I moved out, Christina wasn't home. She'd taken Noah to her parents' place. I packed my things, loading them into my SUV while Jennifer helped with smaller boxes. I'd written Christina a short note, remembering the good times instead of all the pain. Jennifer owned a modest, cozy home, and we spent our first night unpacking. She admitted she'd had feelings for me for years but refused to act on them as long as I was still married. I appreciated her integrity. Within a month of the divorce being finalized, I proposed to Jennifer. She didn't want a big ceremony, just close friends and family. Jade was thrilled, Noah was supportive but sad that his parents were truly over. We got married in a small backyard ceremony. Jennifer was 5 months pregnant at the time, glowing with excitement to become a mother. I was ecstatic, too, starting a new chapter. Daniel had found happiness with a woman who truly respected him. And I? Brandon wouldn't leave his wife, and after the divorce, our relationship fizzled. Eventually, I dated another man, Kevin, only to discover he was still married. I ended things on Christmas Day after confronting him and learning his wife was blindsided. Feeling miserable, I drove around aimlessly. Jade was with Daniel and Jennifer, Noah often spent time there, too. They had invited me, but I felt like an intruder. Yet eventually, I wound up at Daniel's new home, tears in my eyes. Daniel opened the door and pulled me into a hug. "You can stay," he whispered. Jennifer appeared and hugged me, too. "It's Christmas. Family is family, Christina, no matter what." I spent the day there, tearful yet strangely comforted. Jade and Noah were genuinely glad to see me, and Jennifer's parents were polite. Daniel's parents still treated me kindly. That evening, I watched Daniel read a bedtime story to their 3-year-old daughter. It reminded me of when he used to do the same with Jade. Later, I stayed in the guest room at Jennifer's insistence. As I lay in bed, alone, I thought of everything I'd done and lost. Daniel was no longer mine, his affection belonged to a woman who'd never taken him for granted. Somehow, though, no one hated me. They'd forgiven me, even if I couldn't forgive myself. Maybe, in time, I would move on and find peace. Until then, I'd keep searching for what I truly wanted out of life.